Hello everybody, welcome to the stream here. How are you doing? I'm just gonna quickly record a private citizen episode. I do not have much time today, as has been the case. Hello Ava, how are you doing? What are you up to? Why are you not working? Why are you not working? So I would love to stream some games or whatever. Like, I'd love to stream some Tarkov. The wipe is happening right now, but I just can't. Oh, you have Elternzeit. Yes, for everybody who's watching who's not. That's what do you call that in English? That's like children. It's like every Wednesday. Okay. So is it flexible now? I thought it was like you can get like 6 months or whatever. Parental something, yes. Parental something. It's like when you get a kid and then you can take some time off and you have paid time of work. Completely flexible. Wow. Okay, so it used to be that it was only for women, and then a few years parental leave. That's it. Thanks, Jim. And then we changed it so you can you can switch it up. Like the man can do it, both can do it. But I thought, so I don't have kids, obviously, and I'm not planning to. So I always thought it was kind of like you'd have to so one parent takes like half the time, or like 20%, the other parent takes 80%. I thought it was like, you take like a few months at once or a few weeks. Often it's like, I know a lot of people where the man took like a month, and then the women did like the rest. But apparently it's completely flexible now, which I guess is cool. That's cool. That's almost modern. It's almost like Germany is moving to the modern age. Well, we're gonna do a topic today that is not very. I don't know. Your kid's too small and for this and can't speak English, so you can enjoy it. We're gonna talk about porn today because I'm on a censorship binge, obviously, with the podcast, and there's some new German laws to do with porn, and they're blocking a lot of porn, and I want to get into that because I think it's also very important for privacy. Most people don't see that. Always here for the porn. Yeah, so if you're into porn, then I think we're gonna have a problem in Germany pretty soon here with porn. I'm gonna explain that. Anyway, as usual, ground rules apply. I'm not gonna while I record this, I'm not gonna interact with chat as much. Alerts are muted, and channel points will be refunded. VPN only porn. Yeah, probably gonna have to use VPNs, but that's just that's a cat and mouse game. I know this from security. They're gonna next step's gonna be they're gonna be like, oh, VPN, we're gonna make that illegal. That's what they'll use to get the child porn now. So I think we need to fight this in the beginning, and I'm gonna fight for porn today. I'm your man when it comes to that. Anyway, I'm gonna get right into this. Record this. I'm going to explain this further on the show. Of course, I want to do more streaming and stuff, and I've been saying I want to have a schedule, but I'm gonna take some time off here from beginning next week, and I'll be gone. I won't touch a computer for 2 weeks, so don't wonder if you don't hear from me for a while. I'll get back, and then I'll try to regroup. I'll try to regroup with work a little bit, and I will try to set up a fucking streaming schedule. I'll probably stream some podcasts before that. I want to do this one and then 2 more, and if possible, gonna stream them all. Anyway, let's while I'm talking about bullshit, let's see if this whole situation, if this all works. Because the last thing I need now is like a technical problem. I probably shouldn't peak the microphone that much. That is not. We don't need that. That seems to work. Okay, let's rewind the tape. Cracks me up every time. That fucking tape. It's a fucking Zoomer using this interface. What is this? What is that thing? And why do if I play and then stop, why does it keep playing from there? Why doesn't it, why do I have to manually what? It's just blunt. I probably shouldn't peak the microphone that much. That is not. We don't need that. That seems to work. Yeah, that seems to work. Rewind. So I'm gonna launch right into it. I'm gonna explain everything I need to explain on the show. Hopefully do this relatively quickly today, and then I'm gonna hand you over to, I don't know, probably Deadly Slob, while he plays Tarkov Wipe and does things that I would like to do but I can't do. and then I'll get some more work done. Because the problem is when you decide, the downside when you decide, oh, I'm going to go on a holiday. And I learned this. It doesn't change if you. It's the same like if you work for a company or if you're a freelancer. Then suddenly you have this like, oh shit, I only have 2 weeks and I need to get this shit done before that. Yeah. And then, so it's kind of weird. Sometimes it feels like the time before holiday, you stress yourself so much that you need at least like the first week to come down from that. So you're basically just wasting. You're wasting the first week of holiday just by going on holiday. Anyway, that's my. That's what I learned. That's what I learned recently. Right. What was that? Oh god. So if you hear loud noises, don't be alarmed. They're basically digging up the whole neighborhood. They didn't finish with all the roadworks last year, and they started up again. I don't know why it took them like till June to start it, but now they're doing that. They're building a school building a little bit away, like a block away, where they're basically just digging the foundations right now. And then they're building a supermarket. So it's everywhere. There's just like big cats rolling down the street the whole time. It's like SnowRunner almost. It's there. That's the downside when you move to like a new area where they're still building shit. We kind of knew this. Usually I tend to record. The good thing is I tend to record these podcasts in the evening, and that's when like roadworks. The people they're already fucked off work. They stop working at 4 in the afternoon, and then I can start recording. But today I have some shit to do later, so I have to do it now. So if you hear some noises, it's either the neighbors killing themselves again with heavy objects, or they're just starting to dig up the street outside of my window. That could also happen. Anyway, let's get this podcast rolling. Let's do this. Where can I? Okay, so that's it. That's it for take 1. Because I really need like I have a hardware mixer, but I need like a software mixer. Before I can get that, I need some money. Anyway, so we're gonna have a take 2 here. That obviously fucked that up. You're listening to The Private Citizen, your podcast about privacy, security, and free speech, and today also censorship. This is episode 76 for Wednesday, the 30th of June, 2021. Censorship does not take place. Hey everybody, you listen to The Private Citizen. Thanks for being here. My name is Fab. I'm your host, coming to you live from the city of Düsseldorf in Germany, where they're, rebuilding the whole neighborhood. They're digging foundations, they're digging up the street. So if you hear some loud noises, please not be alarmed. It's completely normal. I'm recording this episode in the daytime because I got some work to do. Usually I do it in the evening when the road workers are off work already. But today I had to do it earlier, so... And I might be digging these foundations a bit harder because they're probably frustrated with Germany being kicked out of the Euro last night by England. I didn't see it. I got other shit to do. I can't be bothering with bread and games right now, but they might be a bit frustrated. Anyway, thanks for being there. We are gonna talk today about censorship because I'm on a bit of a censorship binge, and the topics just keep coming up. And it kind of all fits together, so I'm just doing that now while I'm on a roll. And we're going to talk about porn today. Lots of porn, because there's some issues in Germany with censorship and with porn. And I think they're important. Not because, of course, I'm a man. I watch a lot of porn. I like porn. I'm not afraid to admit that. But I also think a lot of people think, well, it's just porn, And there are a lot of prudes in society, but I think this is very important because I think we're in a culture war right now, a Kulturkampf. I'm going to explain this later in depth, but I think this is just the first step. I think this is indicative, and we've seen them clamp down on other stuff. And I do feel like a listener who wrote in, got a good feedback section today. Got somebody writing in, which we're gonna also read out later. And he kind of saw this and put this very well. That we're in this fight right now, and there's not enough people understanding what's going on, and we, the people who do, probably you're listening to this podcast because you have an inkling what's going on. We are in the vast minority, and we need to learn to explain to people what's going on. So I'm gonna try to do that today. But first, some housekeeping before we get into the show proper. I would like to tell you that this show is going to go on somewhat of a hiatus from the 8th of July till the 28th of July. So we should be back to regular Wednesday releases on the 28th. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know this. I did the same thing last summer. I'm just going to fuck off, go on holidays because I need to. I've been working a lot recently. And it's just been really bad. Like the year so far has not been really good for me as a freelancer. I've been working my ass off trying to open like new business opportunities and stuff, new opportunities for me, and it's not been working well. I've been not making a lot of money. So but I've been very stressed with it. So I'm just gonna take some time off, hit the motorbike, ride the motorbike around, and not touch a computer for like about 2 weeks. So if you don't hear from me, don't be alarmed. That'll be the case. I won't be streaming on Twitch. I won't be doing podcasts. I will, however, because I always do this, I will make up for it. When I get back, I'm planning to just like my plan is to like on this holiday, forget all this shit and then regroup and do new plans and try to get the stream schedule in order on Twitch and try to get some podcasts out, and also, regroup and try to earn some fucking money, because I'm barely putting food on the table right now as it is. And we need to fix that. But it's not really any of your concern. I'm just trying to explain what's going on. So I will try. So before I go, there will be an episode next Wednesday for sure, which I'm gonna put out on the usual Wednesday release. And then I'm going to try to do one extra episode before that. So we have a bit of extra content. And then when I come back, I'm going to make up for that 1 or 2, depending on how much it is. I'm going to make up for these episodes. This, I've been doing this over the last year as well. I try to get an episode out every Wednesday, and I'm putting out one a week, but sometimes I have to, I'm going to go on holiday and have to buffer them up and going to give you some extra content later. I've got enough topics. Like, that's not the problem. I've got like a book that has a lot of long list of topics. I just don't, have the time right now. Otherwise, I'd be like, if I wasn't working on other shit, I would have like prepared it and pre-released it for you, but that's just not happening right now. But that's all of the housekeeping. Just don't worry if you don't hear from me for a while, and if there are no podcast releases, you are now cued in what's gonna happen. And with that, let's get into the topic of the show. Let's talk about porn here. But actually, that was a teaser. But actually, before we get into porn itself, I want to recap something that I've talked about in the previous episode, something about censorship in Germany. So, because a lot of people misunderstand this, and ever since I've been doing this episode and I've talked to people about it, there were still people misunderstanding this. I'm trying to keep this short. Because, you can always go back to episode 75. By the way, Private Citizen Press, the website, all the show notes are there, all the episodes are there. But to make it short, there's a very important article in the German Grundgesetz, as we call it, GG, good game. It's kind of our equivalent. It's not technically constitution, but it's kind of our equivalent. The first 10 articles are very important. They cannot be changed. They are kind of our Bill of Rights. Let's put it that way. And Article 5 says literally, in there it says, eine Zensur findet nicht statt, which translated directly into English would mean censorship does not take place. Probably have to say that in a German accent. Censorship does not take place. And lots of people seem to think that that means there's no censorship in Germany, which is in fact not true. Germany is one of the, I think, where Western democracies are concerned, one of the most censorship-happy ones. I mean, people probably know the thing with the the swastikas and all those we call them verfassungsfeindliche Symbole, symbols used by organizations that are hostile to the constitution. There are lots of symbols you are not allowed to use in Germany. There are exceptions, of course, if you're doing history classes or whatever. And if you for example, if you do something in historical context, so if you build a model, let's say of the Bismarck, right? The battleship Bismarck had a huge swastika on the deck. Companies that build these models always leave them off, but they don't really have to, really. I think they just don't want to get into trouble. If you're building a historically accurate model, then you'd be completely okay. Also with many video games, if you have a historical setting, I'm not talking something about where it's like, what's it, Wolfenstein, where it's in the future and there's like future moon Nazis, whatever. All bets are off there. But if I wrote a column once when I still worked for Heise on a game called Hearts of Iron, which is a relatively it's trying to be a historically accurate strategy game adaptation of World War II. And they took all the swastikas off the uniforms of the Nazi generals. And I'm pretty sure they would be okay with that because, these are historical people, right? They even took some of them out, I think. But if you have a game and it's you're explaining historical situations and you're like, I don't know, there's Rommel in the game and that's his uniform, I think you would be okay. But generally, that's an aspect of censorship as well, where companies will self-censor beforehand, and we talked about that in previous episodes a lot. But so people are aware of this aspect of censorship in Germany, and that kind of gets ignored. But there are others. So there are articles in the Grundgesetz itself. I mean, I've explained in the previous episode how this article only applies to the state. Censorship of the state towards their citizens. It does not even apply if you're a company. If you're a company or a private person, you can censor whatever you want. You're not violating the Grundgesetz. The Grundgesetz is a check or this article, or a lot of the Grundgesetz is a check on the government. It's supposed to be there so that the government can't pass certain laws that would endanger democracy. But there are also all these articles kind of interlock, right? There's always in law, there's always checks on things, like the famous check on free speech, that if you shout fire in a movie theater and you're endangering people, and that's not free speech. It's not protected as free speech. Same thing here. So there are articles in the Grundgesetz that for example, the first one protects the integrity or the honor of a person's what would that be? Oh God, I'm gonna have to look this up now. What's Würde? Why don't I know the specific word for that right now? Dignity, right? The dignity of a person. So this is, for example, or the mental state of children or whatever, whatever. And that's where we get to the porn topic, right? There are also articles about protecting the integrity of the democratic system, and where that is concerned, the German government can censor shit. The flag, the swastika flag is. There's an article that is supposed to protect the integrity of the democracy we have, and then you have two. You have two conflicting articles, right? One says the state can't censor, the other says the state has to protect the democracy. And then you have legal opinion. That's why the Grundgesetz, which is in itself a very slim kind of law, if you just buy that book, it's like a slim book. And then there always, if you study history or politics or whatever, you learn about these, or law, you get the commentary version, which is 10 times the size. Or for the Grundgesetz, it's 20 times the size, which has legal commentary, which says, in established jurisprudence, when these two articles collide, it's generally accepted that, the government can actually censor things. So censorship does happen in Germany. People just get confused by this very placative sentence like censorship does not take place. And it's the first thing. Literally, this is the first thing I learned, like in politics, when you go, the first semester, like literally like your first week of politics class, and there's like you do some policy studies, and then they go like, okay, this is the law, but you cannot go take a law and read it, right, and read it verbatim and think that's what it means, right? This article does not mean there is no censorship. What this article means is basically there shouldn't be censorship by the state towards its citizens unless it is called for to protect other very important unalienable rights. That's what this actually means. But most people don't know about this. But I thought this was relatively important to get into this again, just to explain in the beginning here, what we're talking about, that there is censorship, and there's censorship by the German state. Before we get into the porn thing, there's probably one other thing I should put out here in the beginning, and that is my stance on pornography. I personally, I'm not a religious person, so you'll understand this later as well when I'm talking about this stuff. But I have no problem with pornography at all. I think it is a sensitive. There are moral issues, big moral issues around pornography, right? I don't think, personally for me, they're not around the pornography itself. I think if something happens between consenting adults, then that should be fine. If they're not hurting anybody else, that should be fine. I'm personally, I'm a very free. You listen to this podcast, you probably know that I'm very liberal in the actual sense of the word, right? I think that people should be free to I think if somebody says they want to die, because they have an illness or whatever, they should be free to. I mean, I even think if somebody wants to get shot in the face, and then why not? I know there are mental issues, and they could you basically can't regret that later. But I think I'm a very big proponent of people's right to for lack of a better word, form their own destiny. And the same thing goes with porn and with sexual practices. But I think generally, I like religion. I defend people's right to believe whatever they want to believe and to practice whatever they want to believe. But like we talked about on the show before, I think they should do that in private. I don't want to know what people do. I don't really care. I don't really care what your religious beliefs are, what you think your gender is, what you like to eat, what you don't like to eat. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Just leave me the fuck alone, right? But on the other hand, I am liberal towards what people want to do. The same thing goes for porn. The big issue with porn, it's not the porn itself. This is obviously all my opinion. In my view, the problem is the production. There are huge legal moral issues, but mostly moral for me, with the production of porn. The porn industry is a cesspool. It's horrible, and I will not deny that. But I think, for me personally, I think that is because if you look at society, if you have something that you push to the fringes of society, may it be porn, certain sexual practices, drugs, stuff like that. If you push that to the fringes of society and make it borderline illegal, then you make it illegal, then you'll have very horrible people getting human beings are if it's the purest form of capitalism, right? If there's a demand, somebody will fill that demand. And by outlawing something, by saying, okay, heroin is now illegal, I mean, I think we all agree, you can do that as a state, but you won't stop people from taking that drug. You won't stop people from selling it to them. And the practices they're selling the drug to them under are going to get really ruthless because it's illegal anyway. If I'm doing something highly illegal and if I get caught and I'm put into jail, who cares if I put baking powder in that stuff or whatever they do, right? Or if I shoot somebody over a drug shipment, right? I'm going to go to jail anyway. And while porn isn't illegal, it's like on a fringe. And you get some of those people, like, a lot of like people who basically don't care get into that industry. And it's tied up with illegal industries, like, human trafficking. I mean, the same problem is prostitution, which is largely legal in certain constructs. It's different in it's very different in Germany than it is in the US. It's different even in the Netherlands than it is in Germany. But I think in most of the countries, whatever, if you're not, I don't know how the fuck it is if you're like in China right now. And I know I have some Chinese listeners. But, I think for most of us, it's kind of the same thing. It's like a gray area, and you have like really questionably and morally questionable things going on and horrible things going on. But I feel it's largely because it's delegated to the fringes of society. I think if we were less prude as a society and more open about these things, then it could get better. I mean, there are, for example, there are porn studios who are producing porn films under, or pornographic content under, like, good moral rules, where they're like, there's some companies run by women who, like, their whole goal is not to exploit other women. And, there are these beginnings, but it's like really hard. And I think with stuff we're going to talk about in a bit, like the censorship and this shit, and like pushing it to the side of society, we're actually making it worse. And I do think, now this is something, I don't know, this is probably controversial, but I think, I've been thinking about this topic a lot recently, because I've been noticing, so this is a little side topic. It's really not in the show notes, but I've just been thinking about this, and I think this is something I'm interested in. So I'm a man, right? And I'm turning 38 this year, and I've been noticing changes, right? And I've been noticing them for a while, and I can't talk to you about like if you're a woman or you have different hormones than I have, but I think this is something that a lot of men go through at my age or later or earlier. There's like this thing you notice where when you're young and you're a teenager, you're like, as a typical male, you're horny all the time. And you have a lot of energy, but you actually get less shit done. And you're less focused about what you want to do in your life because you're constantly distracted by trying, for the lack of a better word, trying to get pussy, right? Or ass, or whatever you want to do. But, your sexual drive is impinging on your life a lot. And when you get older, it's not like I don't like sex anymore. I still have a lot of sex, actually. Probably TIL here. TIL? Too much information? TMI. But, full disclosure here, right? So I've been thinking about this. I'm like, now I'm a lot more focused in my life because I don't have that, like, thing in the back of my mind going the whole time. And I don't think I was particularly, like, worse with this. I think there's, like, young men who are a lot worse than me. So I've been reading about this, and I've been reading a lot of research about testosterone and hormones and, and how they influence a society. And there's actually like a little branch of, I don't know, it's almost like, it's probably sociology or whatever, but it's almost like history, where like some people that are into sociology and into history are writing about what like hormones do to like society. And I find this extremely fascinating. So one of the stories, or one of the things, like I never really knew a lot about the Vikings, right? So a friend of mine, if as you probably know, I live stream this on Twitch. If you're on Twitch, a friend of mine, Halifa, she's a great streamer. She was playing Assassin's Creed, Valhalla, a while ago, which is a video game about Vikings. You're playing a Viking. It's about Viking history. Now I was watching her and I was like, I don't know a lot about Viking history. So while I was watching her, like, she was playing this over a few months, and I kept watching her every few days. I was actually reading a bit about Viking history, which is something, you study history, but I did newer history, modern history, whatever. And there's always holes in your education, right? For some reason, this never really came up in my school history education. But it's very fascinating. The first thing I learned is that Vikings really aren't like I always thought it was like an ethnic group or whatever. Like, basically a a nation or whatever. But they're not. The Vikings are basically, it's a job description. It's basically you're a pirate, right? You're a raider. And then I read a lot about, like, I was like, why did they go to England all of a sudden? And, you know, it was kind of like, you know, the German, I think the Saxon kingdoms were very well defended, and like the English weren't, so they went over there. It was like, why did they go? Like, why put themselves on boats and go over the fucking sea and have all this risk? And there's a theory that it's basically because they ran out of like sexual partners. So basically, the Norwegian or like the Scandinavian, they had like this tradition back then, a horrible tradition where they wanted male children, and they actually killed female children. Right, the thing. I mean, in the Middle Ages, in other cultures, this was often done as well. But basically, it was a combination of them killing too many of their female babies in infancy, and then the nobles, kings, and all the bigwigs, basically they were living in monogamy, right? So they all had like 6-7 wives and like courtesans and like whatever, a lot of women, and then there were young. Basically, today you would probably call them middle class or lower class men growing up that didn't have like any or a good choice of sexual partners. And one of the reasons why they would actually go overseas and pillage and rape is because, you know, they brought women home. They went to England or wherever and like stole women. It obviously a horrible impact on humans. Like if you look at what the Vikings did, I mean, today the Vikings are kind of, it's like, you know, it's like war crimes happened 100 years ago. They're like really horrible. If they happened like 600 years ago, Hollywood makes movies about them. They're cool, right? Suddenly going around for like 200 years, whatever, and just going to innocent other countries, burning all their buildings down, killing all the men, and raping the women and carrying them off, whatever, is like cool. But basically, horrible impact on society as a whole, and largely because of like repressed. It was basically toxic masculinity, as you would call it today. And of course, like, you know, you see that in a lot of cultures, like, you know, basically testosterone based, you know, the Spartans had this whole thing. Lot of cultures where, like, if you look at society, or like if you look at history and you go like, what's like the worst factor in history, like what has caused the worst like destruction and loss of life and all of this, it's probably the influence of testosterone. It's like men going off, basically trying to impress women and going to war. And you still have that today, right? That's why a lot of young men join the army. And that's why, you know, if you look at violent crimes, you know, that's why a large percentage of like violent, especially organized crime, is perpetrated by men. I'm currently reading a book about serial killers. And if you look at serial killers, it's like 5% women. So there's definitely something to this, I think, to this theory that, you know, testosterone, human males' sexuality is having an impact on society. And I'm now getting around to my actual theory. I actually think, I mean, you can have the opposite theory, but I think porn helps with that. I think letting out sexual drive, blowing of steam, so to speak, can actually be really healthy. I actually have this theory that if you like young and like a guy, I don't know, I'm not talking about women here because I have no idea. Like, I'd love to talk to somebody. Like, if anybody listens to this, you know, Private Citizen Press, and you want to talk to me about how like this is for women, please let me know. It would be a fascinating story. But, you know, I can just talk from my perspective. I think it actually probably makes you productive if you just go and blow off some steam, like with some porn, and then you can concentrate and do whatever you want to do. Anyway, that's just something I think. That's why I think pornography can actually be a net positive for society, because it keeps like men from for raping and pillaging, basically. No, I don't want to go that far, but you know, of course. So I'm going to operate on this theory in this podcast, but that doesn't mean what I wanted to say. The point I'm trying to make is that doesn't mean that I don't understand that porn, as the porn industry as it is today, is horrible, and that there are like serious moral issues with how porn is produced. But I think actually, and I'm going to talk about that in a little, at the end of this whole segment as well. Again, I think the goal here should not be to like ban or censor or like punish people who use pornography, but to drag it into the light. Kind of like the same theory where people are saying, if you're criminalizing like marijuana, for example, you're just turning people, you're pushing them to the fringe of society. So just the step they have to take to actually go into a life of crime is like tiny. Whereas if you drag it into light, you just make it normal, maybe it's actually better. Maybe the impact isn't that bad. And maybe we can actually produce porn ethically. And maybe then we get some actual actors involved or whatever, because that fucking needs to like that, I don't know. Like, porn could use a lot of improvement. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, why am I talking about this? What is the actual, what's happening? Why am I talking about this topic now? So let's get into that. So, as I said before, this I'm in Germany here, but I actually think this is important if you listen from the US or wherever. This is important for you as well, because I try to pick out stuff that is important for everybody, and I think this is a trend that is everywhere, at least in Western democracies. But I think in this case, Germany's actually on the forefront. Germany's never on the forefront of anything these days. But I think here it is, because I think we're actually very used to censorship. I think, for example, the US is not at the forefront of this fight because free speech has a much higher value and is held up a lot more. It's changing in the US too, but in comparison to Germany, it's a higher value in society, right? Germans generally, I think, value stuff like order and things being orderly much more than, for example, free speech. And I do think this is a free speech issue. I don't want to get into the argument if porn itself is free speech, but what is basically happening is here we are in a Kulturkampf. We're in a, as we call it in Germany. I'm not using this. We're in a culture war. I'm not using this lightly. I think we actually are. I think, broadly speaking, we are in a war between people who think they're doing the right thing, and they're generally not bad people. Most of them think they think of themselves as very forward-thinking, progressive, but for whatever historical reason that I've actually haven't figured out, I'm thinking about this a lot, but they basically think that they know what is best, right? And that I'm exaggerating this for the sake of argument, but they think they're very liberal, progressive, but they know what's best, and they want to get people to do that, to do what they think is best. And also, very dangerously, they have this idea that basically freedoms should be not a right, but like a perk. They should be like a treat for a dog, like something you get and you've seen it. I've talked about this very clearly all throughout this whole pandemic thing. You've seen this very clearly, especially in Germany, where the Chancellor Angela Merkel was basically saying this, like, if you behave nicely, if you do what we tell you, you can have a life again, right? You're a nice dog. You do what we tell you. Here, you can have a treat. That's the one side. And the other side is, I guess most people listen to this podcast, and I do think I'm on this side, are people who I think are the actual liberals, that they're the people who actually know what being liberal means. But generally, they just have the idea that these rights we've had, these freedoms we have, they were very hard fought for, right? There was a sea of blood and mountains of bodies, and I'm being literally here. I'm talking about World War I, World War II, right? The the revolutions, the French Revolution, the American Civil War, insurrections, peaceful revolutions like the German unification, the fall of the the Iron Curtain, all of that. But like we had all these things, they were very hard fought for, these freedoms, and they're not a treat. We have learned with experience in our history that these were fought for very painfully, and that they're very, very important, and that they're not something that should be like a contingent. They shouldn't be like it shouldn't be an option, right? They should be the basis of our society, and nobody should be able to take them away. And these freedoms are, I think, free speech, privacy, the right broadly as a citizen of a country to do whatever you want to do unless you're seriously harming somebody, right? And I mean seriously harming somebody. I don't mean like coughing on somebody and then maybe at some point somebody at some point is gonna get sick. I mean like not actually harming somebody, like and I think that those are the sides. And of course, both sides are biased. I mean, we've talked about this. We talked about on this podcast often journalism, and that I don't really believe in objectivity. I'm not saying I'm also like over exaggerating this, of course, right? We often talked about on this podcast as well that there are no two sides. There shouldn't be like left or right. Everything is gray. There are people like it's a huge spectrum. But I feel broadly speaking, I don't, generally I don't want to divide society in these ways, but generally I feel like when I look at what somebody's doing these days in public and what they're arguing for politically, I see those two sides. And that doesn't mean like people on that side where I think I'm on, they're bad people on this side, very bad people. There are bad people on the other side, but there are also good people on the other side. One of the big problems I have with this whole thing is that I am on a side that has more bad people than the other side. I think there are generally more people I would like meet and hang out with on the other side and have friends with. But I think like if you look at society as a whole, what they're doing is a net loss for society. And I think the other side is actually, for lack of a better term, right. I think it's worth fighting these freedoms. And that's always the problem. The problem with these freedoms, with freedom of speech, with letting other people do what they want to do, is always you will encounter things that you don't like, right? If I fight for freedom of speech, I will have neo-Nazis in my corner. Well, not in my corner, but I will have to fight for the right of neo-Nazis or like anti-vaxxers or Holocaust deniers. These people are exercising free speech. Yes, it's limited in Germany, but think if we're thinking we're in America at the moment, right? In the US, it's even starker there. You will have these people, and you will have to fight because it's also their right. That's the thing. God, now I forgot who said it, but I don't think it was some dissident in the Third Reich. But like the hard part about this is that if you fight for freedom of speech, you fight for others to express opinions that are not your opinion. That's the hard part. If you're on the other side and you think you know what's best, it's a lot easier. Right? And the problem is that I think a lot of good people are on that side because they are seriously convinced that they're right, and they're very convinced that they know best, and they don't see the problem, right? They don't see, and we talked about this often as well, they don't see them saying, okay, in this case, I'm right with like being authoritarian, right? They don't see that even if they're right in that case, that they're establishing a precedent and that they're destroying this, that they're taking freedom away, that it's never going to be given back. I've said this often on the show. I stand by it. There hasn't been an instance in modern history where any government has gone, hey, we're taking your freedoms away. And then, like, I don't know, a year later, they were like, here, have it back. Have it back. Right? Sometimes it's for a limited time. But, it's like but they're not taking that actual law back, right? So in Germany, we have all the COVID restrictions. They might go away. The virus might go away. That all will go away. The change to the law, the Infektionsschutzgesetz, the IFSG, right? The infection protection law, whatever. That's not going to change. That's not going to get taken back. Nobody's going to take that back. If you believe that there's going to be change in government, and sometime there are like, at some point there'll be like freedom-loving hippies in the government that will like, we'll take all this back. It's not going to happen. The only way it's going to happen is if like the Constitutional Court, but they've already basically, there's nothing coming from that quarter, I think. But, I think these people are very, very naive, or they just, I don't know, they just haven't studied history enough to think that that's going to happen. And the problem is sometimes they're right? Sometimes they are right. But like it's very hard to explain to these people. I've been trying for years now, with columns, with everything. It's very hard to explain to them to say, look, you're right in this case, but what you're pushing for is still dangerous. Not in this case, but if you think about it, if you think it through, it's dangerous. And I always go back to this, and people are always like, "Oh, you always go on about the Nazis," but it is a very good, explanation. There were some laws in the Weimar Republic, so the republic in Germany before the Nazis came to power, that were sensible. There were sensible laws, and when they were passed, they were generally, you'd think, yeah, this is a good idea, but they eventually caused the downfall of the democracy. And there were people arguing back when they made that constitution and saying these are not good things in here. Like, we do not want, if we have a democracy and we're voting our government or whatever, we don't want to have clauses in here where the government can go, this is an emergency, we're changing the rules here. You don't want that. And they weren't listened to. And I don't think it's such a stark situation right now, but I think it's more of a like chipping away. We're chipping away at every corner. And this porn thing actually is right. Sure. Sorry, I just preempted myself, pushed the wrong button there. We're gonna play that later. This porn debate is just an example where it's a chipping away where if just looking at it you'd be of the different opinion, like, Fab, you're wrong, this is good, we need to protect the children, but as a whole, it's like a problem. And, this, it's also hard. It's hard to have like the wrong people on your side, right? So I wrote a column the other day, and I think I published it yesterday in the German part of my blog, where I just write German things. And I wrote about anti-vaxxers, and I basically said, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I mean, the headline image on that blog post has like a picture of my SARS-CoV-2 vaccination, which, as we know, erroneously says COVID-19 vaccination. But, we've talked about this. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm vaccinated against all kinds of things. And I think generally, and I explained this in this article, I think generally vaccinations are a good idea. I don't think there are the silver bullet people make them out to be. If you actually read if you read scientific studies about this, it's very hard to eradicate a disease completely by vaccinating the population, especially if you're talking worldwide. Some scientists are of the opinion that that's impossible, but of course that's it's pretty much a speculation. But it's very hard. It's not as easy as many journalists make it out to be. We just get everybody vaccinated, the problem goes away. That's not how it works in reality. But I am of the opinion that vaccinations are a good thing, which is why I got mine, right? Having said that, what I contrast in this column is that these people are idiots, right? These anti-vaxxers are idiots. It is, of course, idiotic to go and say, well, if you get the vaccine, there are like little chips in there and they're like hooked up with 5G, and then you do Bill Gates bidding, right? I hate Bill Gates, Listen to Linux Outlaws back in the day, right? That guy is horrible. Still, that idea is idiotic. It's dumb. It's completely dumb. And yeah, people are making fun about that on Twitter. But what I'm saying is that more dumb than, for example, believing that about 2,000 years ago, the Romans killed a carpenter, right, by nailing him to a cross. He then died, but not of the wounds, but for the sins of humanity. Something came back to life and promised everybody to save the planet, did some other shit, did some miracles, and then disappeared. How is that more crazy than the 5G theory? How is believing that, a few thousand years ago the whole earth was flooded and some guy built a boat and saved every animal on the planet by like saving 2 of each on a boat? How is that more crazy? And those instances of craziness are protected by the German Constitution, by the very Grundgesetz, by Article 4, I think it is. You're free to believe whatever you want. You're in your religion. You're free. You can believe that shit. So why can't I believe that Bill Gates puts 5G things in me? Like, how is that more ridiculous? I mean, these fucking double standards, this hypocrisy, that is the problem in our society. It makes me so angry. Same thing with Scientology. People go, they have like this alien guy that came to Earth and then put people in planes and then bombed them. Isn't that crazy? And those same people don't think about how like Christian belief, Muslim beliefs, Jewish beliefs are completely crazy, right? Let's not even start talking about like the Mormons, the guys in Salt Lake who put like this, that angel they put on all of their churches, that golden. If you watch The Expanse, they build a ship, they put the fucking angel on the spaceship. It's like a golden angel with a trumpet. That angel is called. He brought, if you don't know anything about Mormonism, he brought like the fucking tablets to the founder of Mormonism in like 18 something. The fucking angel is called Moroni. It's called the angel Moroni. That that religion that basically tells you if you believe this is like the founder of the religion telling you if you believe in this shit you're a moron, literally. And they put that on every how is that less crazy? Why are people not making fun of that? Why are people not making fun of people going to church every Sunday, putting like a piece of bread in their mouth, drinking some wine, saying that's like the flesh of Christ, and they're drinking, and then they just only do this shit so they can go fuck somebody without a condom, and then they put like lots of kids in the world that they don't want to. Like, how is that worse? Like, how are we tolerating, and we have a constitution in Germany that protects this explicitly, right? That some religions are like mutilating little boys who can't choose and they just cut a piece of their penis off, right? How is that okay and completely fine? But if I want to say, I don't want this vaccination, like, I'm going to get made fun of, not only on Twitter, I'm going to get made fun of by my fucking colleagues, by journalists who are basically, the anti-vaxxers, they're so dumb, So I listened, the other day, I listened to the radio in Germany. I listened to our öffentlich-rechtlicher Rundfunk, which is like the public broadcasting company, right? And they had this segment, it was basically the news, and they were talking about vaccinations, and they had this, on public broadcasting that I pay for, they had this segment about where they weren't really making, but like in a veiled way, we're explaining why like anti-vaxxers are dumb and why believing all this 5G shit is dumb. Fair point. Okay, right. Did that for about 15 minutes. And then, because it was a Sunday, they had a 45-minute radio sermon. Right? We're going from making fun of people who believe that they have like 5G chips in their blood, put in there by Bill Gates, to a guy reading from a fucking stupid like... Why can't I remember the word? Damn it. What's the word I'm looking for? Jesus. What's Märchen? Why can't I? I hate it when that happens. You're in the middle of the rant and you can't remember, like, fairy tale. He's reading from a fucking fairy tale book for 45 minutes on public broadcasting, funded by my fucking money. And that's okay, right? I mean, these people are the moral authority. Just look at priests. Just look at what Catholic Church has done. And you don't even have to go back to the fucking Crusades. Just look at what they do to little kids. But it's like, I hate these double standards. It's like the history thing. It's like the war crimes thing, right? Something happens 100 years ago, it's horrible, but 600 years ago, it's okay. Like somebody tells you a ridiculous story today, he's like the dumbest idiot. But if the story is 2,000 years old, yet he's actually protected by the Constitution, and we have a political party that has the fucking ridiculousness in their fucking name, and they're in the government, right? The party that Angela Merkel comes from has Christian in their name, and then they tell me it's dumb, and it's like, this is exactly the problem. And when we get to the porn thing, it's the same thing. It's like you have these same politicians, like prudes, right, basically. And then they go, like, every few years they go, oh, won't somebody think of the children, right? And why am I talking about this? Why am I just ranting at you for hours here? So basically, this whole episode started with a story that I've read, where so Germany is a federal republic, right? We're a collection of federal states. And there are some things that are under the purview of the federal states. And then there are these, like, I don't know, meetings, I guess, council meetings, where like the heads of all the federal states get together to make policy. Because this is like policy that the federal government can't do. So they're making the policy, right? And so the heads, the ministers, I think the interior ministers of all the federal states, they have this like council thing. And they want to create a law now that forces operating system manufacturers all over the world to block all websites that are not classified under the German, child protection scheme, whatever, as safe for kids. Yes. You just heard that right. I'm not even kidding you. They want to force operating manufacturers to block websites that the German government office hasn't classified. We're talking 99.9% of all websites. Literally almost all websites. Like even almost all German websites don't have this fucking label, right? So we're talking Microsoft, Apple, anybody else, presumably people who do a Linux distribution, would basically have to block all websites by default on an operating system level until you kind of, and they don't really explain how this would work, you kind of prove to them, the operating system manufacturer, that you're an adult. That is insane. I don't have kids, and I don't really intend to have kids. I've got nothing against kids. Sometimes I have something against parents because I don't think they can think straight, and I think this is one of the things. I think that politicians want to make this law are parents, and they're like, oh no, we have to protect the children. Look, guys, the majority of the people living in this country are adults, right? And these adults, they want to visit the public internet. If there are sites on this internet somewhere that you don't want your children to see, it's your fucking responsibility. You put children in the world. I didn't ask you to. You put fucking children in the world. You took on responsibility. It's your responsibility to protect your children. It's not the fucking operating system manufacturer's responsibility. Right? I mean, what the fuck? I mean, even beyond the point that this is ridiculous, right? That if you're Apple or Microsoft and you're like, what, Germany, how big is this country? It's like 80 million people, maybe. Like, because of that, because of those people, they want us to change our operating system for everybody. Like, what, as we say in Germany, haben die Lack gesoffen? Did they drink like turpentine or whatever? Like, what is going on with these people? But that's how they think, right? This is how those people think. They think we need to censor the internet for everybody on an operating system level because apparently the children are watching porn and this is how horrible. Now, here's an alternative. Here's what I think. How about those people who have kids, which unlike most people believe isn't all of us, right? There's some of us who don't have kids. But those people have kids. Why don't you own up to your fucking responsibility? And I'm not talking to you, the podcast listener. Okay, I know that many of you have kids, and I know you own up to this responsibility. I'm pretty sure. I'm talking to these fucking politicians. Like, why don't you own up to your responsibility and teach your kids about the internet, how to interact with strangers on the internet, and about porn? Why don't you, why does it have to be up to the school system? You should be teaching your children about sexuality and about porn, and probably a lot earlier than they did in my generation. Because I mean, what are these people thinking? I visit somebody who has children, right? And children are 5 and they have iPads and they're playing around with iPads. If you want that, right, you have to take the other side of that as well, right? You can't just go, let's have the children's stuff on the iPad and then block the whole internet for everybody so the kids can't see just don't give them a fucking iPad if you don't want that. How about that? But of course, you still have to teach your kids about this because the other kids will have iPads and they will have a sleepover, whatever. But just teach your fucking kids. I know it's hard, it's not easy, but the earlier they learn about this shit. I don't know. I'm not a child psychologist, so there's probably too early for this. There surely is. I don't know where that is. But maybe they should put some energy and some money and some legislation into figuring that out. But I hate this shit where people are basically they don't want to do that, and then they want to take, society should take care of putting a plastic wrapper bubble about the kid. I don't. But you need to, and while we're at it, why don't we teach the kids about the problems with porn? Why don't we teach people about they could do that in school maybe. Why don't they talk about the morally problematic things? I know why they don't do that, because the fucking teachers are prudes and they don't want to talk about this. This is clear. Porn is one of these topics. We all watch it, but there are very few people who are ready to admit that and to talk about that, which, I've never had a problem about that. I just usually hold back because I think it's, what TMI? Yeah. Because it's generally, I don't want people, as the same as I don't want other people to just evangelize me with their sexuality or gender XYZ. I don't want to do that to you. But I think the big problem is that people don't own up to this, right? There's a reason Pornhub is the site with the biggest traffic on the internet. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's fucking doing it, right? And then they don't talk about it. And then they mystify it, and then it gets turned into this thing, and then we get shitty ideas like this. And this is new, of course. This is a topic I've had whenever I talk about censorship, I've been thinking about this, because Germany is, as I said in the beginning, it's really censorship-happy. And they before they wanted to put this filter in operating systems, they're also doing other stuff. For example, lately they've been threatened to block sites like Pornhub and X-Hamster. Because these are they changed the laws in Germany at some point, and now apparently they're violating the law. Basically, what they would have to do is to enforce this. So the German government wants them to have the system where they mark their website in a way, right, as not safe for kids or whatever, and then they get filtered by default in Germany. Now, the porn providers are saying, why should we do this for Germany? This is dumb. There's already an international system. And, this is in effect. There's, these websites are flagged. I don't know how they do that. It's probably, I've never really looked into this, probably header or something, HTML header. But, they have tags. It's an HTML tag somewhere in the source code, whatever. It's they have tags. And if you use software, there's, software you can install on your PC, and then you can do, children protection things, and then they can't load these websites. So they're there's an international system, we're using it, we don't see what your problem is, and they're actually suing the German government, or countersuing them in several cases right now, where they're saying we're not going to do this because there is a system, and why don't you just use that system? But that's not the German way. The German way is, we must block everything by default, we must have order. And now they're actually trying, because they're not doing this, these porn sites are not doing this. Actually, what they also want is that, and this is where, if you like porn and you're in Germany, you should perk up, because basically what they want to do is that these sites should not allow any visits from just German users, right? If you're a German user and you go to a porn site, you're supposed to verify your identity with them and then log in every time. And they will not show you the content unless you're logged in. And because the sites are not doing this, now, just recently, German authorities actually demanded that Xhamster be taken down. Well, they did that ages ago with the provider, but the provider didn't want to do it, so they went to their hosting provider, and they're now trying that. And failing that, they're gonna have ISPs like Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone. They're gonna have them completely block those sites. Somehow I can, as we talked about, the downsides of masculinity and testosterone and the repressed sexuality in men. There's a small sliver of me that just wants to see the German government ban Pornhub. I want to see what happens, right? If they thought the so-called run and the storming of the German parliament, which wasn't one, with the Infektionsschutzgesetz and the whole COVID, if they thought that was bad, they really, I think, if they really want to tempt people to go and, I don't know, burn the fucking Reichstag down or whatever they think that's gonna happen, just try to ban Pornhub. That's gonna, if anything is gonna cause Germans to have males to have a revolution, that's probably gonna be it. It's not about Germans, right? It's in every country. It's just the same thing. Just ban Pornhub, and it's just that's gonna be a major problem. So I kind of want to see that from that angle, but I don't really want to, because I think this is idiotic. And if this whole plan they're having, I would not do that, right? I would not. So, first of all, presumably you're using sites like Pornhub and Xhamster because they're free, right? And a big part, I think, generally is not that people don't want to pay for, there's lots of people who don't want to pay for pornography, or they're thinking, if you can have it for free, why would you pay for it? But, one of the reasons you're not doing that is because you're doing this without your wife knowing, probably, and you don't want to have credit cards. It's not about the money, you'd pay that. People have money. There people probably pay €100 a month for this kind of shit. The problem is you don't want your wife or whatever, your spouse, to figure out that you're doing that, right? You don't want to have and not everybody has their own credit card or their own account or whatever. I think that's one of the big problems. And people just don't want to get tracked. You're tracked enough with all the advertising on there, but this is even worse. Just imagine they don't really explain the German the Kommission für Jugendmedienschutz, the KJM, is a commission that is founded by these federal states, whatever. They have a system, or they have systems where they explain how to do this login. They don't really explain how you would check that somebody's actually 18. You'd probably have to send them a scan of your fucking ID card. But then not everybody in Germany, everybody basically has one, but you don't technically have to have one. So also how are these porn sites really going to be privacy, or how's that going to work? Are they going to set up how's that going to be GDPR? Is Pornhub going to set up an office in Ireland for this? I don't think so. But let's imagine that was a thing, and you proved to the site, with your ID card or whatever, that you're 18, and then you get a login, and you're doing this for free porn, by the way, and then you're logging in with that login to Pornhub. That means that you're inherently trackable. That means that Pornhub knows exactly what you're watching. And they probably already, there's advertising, they can figure a lot of that stuff out. But it's different of you just being an IP, or you just actually being logged in under your legal name. And that's legally proved. So I'd be worried personally of the following scenario, right? You do that and you're just watching porn. You're just watching, step bro, I'm stuck porn, which apparently everybody's doing right now. So you're just doing that. And, but presumably if you log in and they have all this data, presumably the German government could go to such a site and say, okay, we have a warrant. We want to see what porn Fab's been watching, and then get all the videos. That would be questionable in any case, because that's most of that. That's the most private information you could have. What porn is somebody watching? But then it's even worse. Let's say you're on there and you're watching a video that is illegal in Germany because the performer isn't 18, but you don't know that, right? You watch that, you're not aware, right? If they then get those records and they have a video where they go, okay, we provably know that this person was under 18 when the video was filmed. We're gonna go and get the records and like indict everybody in Germany who's watched that video. You're not gonna, the way the law in Germany works with these things is you're not gonna have the excuse that you didn't know, right? I'm not a lawyer, of course, it's not legal advice, but you're probably not gonna get off. Oh God, do I have you're probably not gonna get off that easy. And I mean, there are serious penalties for this kind of things already, jail time, but we have some German politicians in government who actually say we need to reform these laws. We need to make it so that if you watch any of, like, if generally it's about distribution of child porn, but like it's very close together with like watching it. They could also go after you watching it, and then you could have jail times. And they want to go and make it that even if you don't have a criminal record, you could go immediately to jail, which is that's like very seldomly done in Germany. Like if you don't have a criminal record, like I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I mean murder, of course, you go straight to jail. But I think there are cases of manslaughter where they basically go, you come out on probation, right? So where you're like, okay, you have to call in every week or every day or whatever, and if nothing happens, if you don't even get a driving ticket, you don't have to go to jail. If something happens, you go straight to jail. But like, I think if I understood their intentions correctly, they want to make it that, you know, if you like distribute or potentially watch child pornography, you could just go straight to jail. And they wanted to raise the jail time, which is, I think, around now for like hard cases, it's like bad cases, like 46 years. They wanted to raise that to 10, or even longer. So I don't know. Like you could potentially, if they have such a system, you could potentially watch porn that you think is totally okay, and then you just get a letter and you just go straight to jail, basically. I mean, it's just like, and I'm not trying to dramatize this. I mean, I have researched some cases as part of my job, where it was basically about hacking and cyber attacks, and where somebody got, I think one person actually got put into prison for, I think they wanted to try proof distribution, but in the end they put him into prison for the possession of child porn. And the guy maintained the whole court case, and as far as I know, still maintains that the evidence was placed on his computer, possibly by like somebody, and like there were actually, it did look like somebody might have just like, basically put a Trojan on his computer and then just put the files there, and like that's not gonna. Even if you can prove that your system was hacked, that's not gonna like save you. You will have to basically prove that like the guy put that on your machine, which is, I think, pretty much impossible. So it's not like this isn't coming out of nowhere. This area of law in Germany is I don't know how this works in the US. I think in the US it's possibly even worse, because like in Germany, at least, like, they're very, very strict about these kind of things, and getting out of it is very hard. But at least in Germany, any kind of entrapment by police and law enforcement is completely illegal. Like if your defender can prove, or just like basically raise the doubt in the judge that the police is trying to trap you, like the case is out and it's not going to get reopened again. Whereas in the US, there are far less, as far as I understand it, far less rules against entrapment by law enforcement. So, I mean, I think I've read back in the day, I've read some news stories about like where they basically were posting child pornography in certain forums and then just basically entrapped people who they were then, okay, you've downloaded this, you're a pedophile. Or even like distributed it, of course, but like it was basically police officers handing them the, like in Germany, you couldn't do that. That would be completely illegal. Like the police officer would probably go to jail because of distribution of child. That like even with the police, like I've talked to a unit once where they're like they were like a special part of like a cybercrime unit, and they were the ones actually having to look at child pornography, which is a horrible job. I can't understand how these people do this job, but like they have very special rules where like they're like one of the few peoples in Germany. It's like those police officers, and then maybe the state attorney, and the judges who can actually and if you're in a court case and you get shown the evidence, that's like the only area in Germany where you can actually legally look at that shit. Like even they had to be really careful, like they have special computers and all this shit, so that no other police officer by accident gets hold of these files, because they would make themselves, that would be illegal as well. It's highly fascinating, but it's like a very touchy topic, and I think it's one where you could, like, without dramatizing it too much, I think you could stumble into this shit like relatively easy, and it's just so much easier for law enforcement to go after you, if they have your name and if there's like records, and if you'd identified yourself to the provider. Also, I would never trust these providers who run these websites either. And the problem is, this is of course criminal law, and the way I think I've explained this before, but like the way law works in Germany, or generally in a Roman-inspired legal system, so you have criminal, you have civil law, and if you have criminal law, the state has to prosecute this. If the police, so let's say the police gets a tip off that you were watching child porn, whatever, and they look at the case. And the police officers investigating this are like, this is highly unlikely. I think the guy was set up or whatever. Doesn't matter. They have to investigate this, and they have to start proceedings. And there can be a situation where like you're getting investigated by police officers where they're like, we don't think this is, but they have to like basically go through with it. So it's something I'd be very careful of. And as we discussed, obviously I'm streaming this in live on Twitch, where I record this podcast, and I talked earlier to some producers in chat. Well, I talked about what I'm gonna record. They said, well, it's pornography, so we'll have to all get VPNs, and that's exactly the thing. Like, this is the problem with the president. Like, this is just gonna get criminalized more and more, and at some point they're gonna go, well, now everybody's watching porn via VPNs, and the logical next step, if you're one of these guys who make these laws, it's just like, let's make VPNs illegal, and it's never going to stop. So I personally think we have to fight this now. We have to fight this here, like with all of this shit, all of this censorship shit. We need to try to get people to be more sensible, especially the people who make the laws. And that's it on the porn topic. I don't know. I'd be very interested. This is a very controversial topic. I'm kind of baiting my producers here a little bit with that shit. So please go to privatecitizen.press. If you're listening to this, give me some feedback. What do you think about this? And I understand that we're not getting any feedback on Twitch right now because you probably don't want to fess up to this publicly. But I have. If you go to privatecitizen.press, if you go to the contact link. I have some means of contacting me that are completely anonymous. There's a lot of text on there. I have a secure whistleblower form. You can contact me via that. Or, if you just contact me by email and you say, well, I want to give you my opinion, but I want to keep my name out of it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you this is one of the things I take very seriously as a journalist. I'm going to give you my word. You're a source. I will protect my sources. I will not tell anybody. And if the police are going to come in here and they want my records, I'm going to call a lawyer. I'm not going to give that up without a fight, even if it's your porn history. But yes, I would love to hear from people what they think about this topic, because it's obviously very controversial. Now, before we get into feedback, I have some other little stories, some bits and bobs that I want to talk about. So let's there's some other news that came up connected to some previous episodes and some other shit. So let's get into that. And I need to drink some coffee. Not that I'm not awake, but keeps me wired. You might remember episode 66. We were talking about Flock, federated learning of cohorts, which is Google's initiative to replace tracking cookies. And I talked about that a lot, and the plans they have. Now, we just had some news that Google has delayed this so-called cookie ban to 2023. And I'm just going to read this short thing from Vox.com just to keep you updated on this topic, which I promised. Google is delaying its long-promised move to block third-party cookies from its Chrome browser by another year. Firefox, Brave, and Apple Safari already block third-party cookies by default and have for some time now. Chrome, by contrast, has dragged its heels to do the same. Now it's dragging them even more. As for what will replace those cookies, that's still an open question. Flock is one of the apparently many options Google is considering, saying that there are more than 30 proposals in the works, and 4 of them are being trialed. So I don't think we know the other 3. Reading this made me, I kind of knew this, but it kind of brought renewed focus to the fact that Firefox is already banning or blocking third-party cookies. I need to look into how this works, and if it works, and what advertisers are doing to get around this, because I'm pretty sure they're still tracking you. Otherwise, the advertising industry has a bit collapsed, but I think it's more down to the pandemic, and I think they would be collapsing a lot more because Firefox is not the biggest browser by far anymore, but it still has a serious market share. If you know anything about this, if you have some links, please go to privatecitizen.press and send me some information in the various ways you can contact me, because I'd be interested. Maybe spend a whole episode on this. Then also something that is close to my heart, because I've been a Bruce Springsteen fan ever since I've been listening to music, literally. I've been to, I don't know how many, must have been close to 50 Bruce Springsteen concerts in my life. There were tours, like the Rising tour. I went to 4 concerts, I think, on one tour. So I really like Bruce Springsteen. I don't like the shit he's doing these days, because I'm going to read from a story here from The Standard. Fans who had AstraZeneca vaccine, that's me, won't be allowed in Bruce Springsteen's New York concerts. So Bruce Springsteen has this, if you only know Bruce Springsteen from Born in the USA and Streets of Philadelphia, and you have Netflix, please watch. I urge you to watch Springsteen on Broadway. It's like a show where he basically plays a concert alone, but he talks a lot about his life. It's based on his autobiography, and it's really, really good. It's very emotional, and the guy is obviously a great musician, but the stories are well worth it as well. But yeah, so, and he's doing a reprisal of that show, Springsteen on Broadway. Anyone who's had the AstraZeneca vaccine will be barred from attending Bruce Springsteen's comeback shows in New York next week. The intimate 5-night run at this, you're not going to get tickets for that anyway, but still. The intimate 5-night run at the St. James Theatre will be the first Broadway show to reopen since last March, and will require attendees to show proof of vaccination. However, the list will be limited only to jabs-approved British publication, to jabs approved by the US Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, Moderna, Pfizer, BioNTech, and Johnson & Johnson. Any potential concert goers who received their Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine overseas will be left with the prospect of being turned away at the door should they book tickets. Why is this? I find it bad that you have to have proof of vaccination to go to a concert anyway. We talked about that. I don't need to rehash that. But why is this all bad? Because obviously the AstraZeneca vaccine is not approved by the FDA, not because it's not effective. In fact, I don't know about Moderna, But and this is for YouTube in case they ban me again. According to the official documentation by the Robert Koch Institute, by the Paul-Ehrlich Institute, so the two German health authorities, and by, in this case, AstraZeneca. This was like a combi thing with all like Pfizer, or BioNTech, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. The AstraZeneca is the most effective vaccine, according to the official numbers published by these pharma companies, and I guess vouched for by the Paul-Ehrlich Institute. It's the most effective. The reason it's not, I don't know about Moderna though, but the reason it's not approved by the FDA is because there's a very, very, very slight risk that you're going to get a thrombosis, so a side effect, which could be fatal. Now, I personally, I talked about this previously on the show as well. I think it's way overblown. I think it's a bit weird because it's in a young age group, but like usually, I mean, people get like, it's a very specific thrombosis, but people get that all the time. I mean, there's lots of side effects from vaccines, down to like lethal ones. I mean, this could be as simple as you getting an injection and they're not shaking. Like when they pull the when they give you an injection and they have the needle and they the emergency room George Clooney thing where they put like the bottle up and then they put their finger next to it. They do that so you don't have any air bubbles in the syringe, because if you get a injection with air bubbles, they could potentially travel to your brain. I don't think they can go to your brain, right? But they can go to your lung. I mean, they could kill you. They can go to your heart. There's people who die of that. I think probably every day around the world in some hospital. It's a very common thing that just happens. Surprise, lots of people die in hospitals. But so I personally, it's my opinion, think the side effect is laughable. But that's why it's not approved by the FDA. So if the concert venue, whatever, this is New York and they're crazy anyway, but like if their health authority knew what they were doing, while I object to it, I think it is understandable, or like it's at least logical, right? It's at least logical to say, okay, we want people to be vaccinated so they're protected, right? But the next logical step would be to decide which vaccination to accept based on how effective it is. Because you didn't approve it because people who could get it could die, right, from a side effect. So that's why you're not giving it to people in the US, right? But if I come in from Germany and I got the I can't go there anyway because I only had one shot. But like, let's say I had both shots and I come over. I mean, the danger is over. First of all, I'm protected. Second of all, I didn't die, right? Didn't die with that side. I mean, what? This makes no sense. But interestingly, we were talking about this on the Discord, and then Tyrell, a listener from Denmark or a producer from Denmark, said the following: we briefly had something similar with the Danish system. And this is, for people who always tell me, there are lots of people, especially in Hamburg, there were lots of people, the Danish do everything better. Yeah, including killing like millions of mink for no fucking reason at all. But yeah, the Danish are generally better. Just listen to this. We briefly had something similar with the Danish system. And it's probably the Hoshni, Knoshni, Knoshni, Vertni, Verknoten. It's probably the Danish health. No, it's, he actually said what it was called. I forgot. Wait, let's look this up live on the show. Danish Health Authority. And I'm going to try to pronounce it. This is going to crack up my Danish listeners. I know I have some. The Danish Health Authority. Sundhedsstyrelsen. Sundheds is probably Gesundheit. It's like German Gesundheit. It's health. Tyrelsen. But it's Danish, so half of the vowels are probably not. It's like, or consonants are not pronounced. It's like Sundhedsstyrelsen. It's probably the Sundhedsstyrelsen. So those guys. We briefly had something similar with the Danish system. They decided AstraZeneca is too dangerous, so stopped using it. We know about that. Then the state system had one of its little moments and decided anyone with the AstraZeneca jab, secretly British, with the AstraZeneca jab had not, in fact, been vaccinated. So the Danish Health Authority because they were like, we're not approving this vaccine anymore. You can't use it. Like the people they had already vaccinated, and that was safe because they were vaccinated. We're like, no, when we didn't approve it, so you're now legally or whatever, like technically not vaccinated. I think Tim says it was briefly because I guess people probably lost their shit about that. Like if I was a doctor and like my local health authority would do this shit, I would threatening to just like quit my job or whatever. That is ridiculous. That is so dumb. That's almost as dumb as like Germans trying to get like Microsoft to put a porn filter in all of the operating systems just because think of the children. And then a third story I quickly wanted to talk about. I talked in episode 75. In fact, last episode, I talked about the YouTube censorship. Right, and what happened to me with the video, and but I also had like a little side thing on like Netzdg in Germany, like the law where if you do something criminal, content providers have to pull it, and how content providers generally use their terms of service and why they do that. So just as I had published this episode, I get an email from Twitch, which they apparently sent to everybody, about how they are now enforcing Netzdg. Right, and there's a post on this on Reddit, which I linked as well, from a Twitch community person, and basically they are saying here that I'm going to quote from this: to comply with this regulation, certain content that is reported by users in Germany will be evaluated under both the Netzdg and Twitch's community guidelines and terms of service. When content is reported under Netzdg, there are three possible outcomes. If the content violates our community guidelines, we will remove it globally and issue the corresponding Twitch enforcement. If the content does not violate Twitch policy, we identify it as illegal under Netzdg. We will restrict access to this content in Germany. If the content does not violate Twitch policies or Netzdg, no action will be taken. Which means, they're looking at the TOS and they ban, if it just, violates the TOS, they're going to ban that. If it's only Netzdg, they're only going to block it in Germany. Now, I found this very interesting, both of the timing and generally. So I wrote this email to Twitch Press, to the Twitch Press email address. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm a freelance journalist from Germany. I'm causing trouble again. Reporting on IT policy issues for several outlets. One of my current focus topics is freedom of speech, press freedom, and overblocking. I'm currently preparing several stories on Netzdg compliance. As such, I will be reporting, as a topic, obviously, that I got triggered on and that interests me very much. As such, I will be reporting on the email you just sent me. Could you please answer 3 questions with regards to this? Number 1, why are you acting on this matter at this time? Seeing as Netzdg went into effect in 2017 and the last changes went into effect on 1st of January of this year. And we now have end of June. Why are you doing this now? Second, you mention your community guidelines and terms of service. What does this have to do with Netzdg? Netzdg is a criminal law concerning, for the most part, very serious crimes. Your guidelines and TOS are a civil law matter as far as German users of Twitch are concerned. And third, let's say you block content I created based on your TOS, but it does not violate Netzdg. Do I have recourse to appeal to this? How does that work? I'm asking because if I understand the Netzdg rules correctly, I do have recourse under criminal law, no less, if you block my content mistakenly under that. So basically, kind of, asking them, because I suspect them to do the same thing I've talked about last episode, that they're basically using their TOS so they don't get into legal problems. I think if somebody uploads something that they think violates Netzdg, they will just say it violates their TOS and delete the video outright. Because as I explained last episode, that's legally less of a problem for them, because the only recourse I then have is civil law. Whereas if they say my content violated Netzdg, they're basically saying I did something criminal. And then I could, and then the German state will have this is not only about Twitch. If that happens, I think they have, I'm pretty sure they're legally required to report this to law enforcement. So law enforcement will then, for some, I've explained this earlier in the show, will then have to, act. So basically, let's say there's a clip of me on Twitch, and a viewer goes, "This violates NetzDG." And Twitch, American company, maybe they don't know so much about German law, I don't know. Obviously, not a lawyer, this is not legal advice. They might go, okay, this violates NetzDG. And then, like, if they just deleted it on the toast and just the video was gone and nothing, like, that would have no further repercussions for me. Maybe they get a strike against my Twitch account. If they say it violates NetzDG, I think they will have to inform law enforcement. And then law enforcement will start criminal proceedings against me. And I could fucking go to jail, which is a little bit more serious than losing my Twitch account. So I don't know. And this is why I have recourse, right? I could then go and I think I could get like a state appointed defense lawyer, because, this is criminal law. And I could actually go, no, that wasn't illegal, what are you saying? And if I win, that would have serious legal repercussions for Twitch. And because it's criminal law, it's not about the company, right? In civil law, it's be like, I get damages or whatever. And then the company pays that. In criminal law, they go after the person who's responsible personally. Like I've explained this earlier, I think last episode, with like the VW thing, right? Where they went up, when they like basically lied on their emission, the emission scandal. They actually went after the people responsible, and like were like, okay, this is going to be jail time. Right, so it's a very, like, what I'm trying to explain to them, which I think Twitch doesn't understand, at least from this email, is that these are two very different things, right? Criminal law is that's a much more serious issue than, maybe they know that, maybe that's my other suspicion, that they're going to do this thing where they're just going to block based on terms of service. But we'll see. So far, unsurprisingly, I've not heard back from Twitch. Either they're going to ignore this, or they're still, what the fuck? Somebody actually asked us a question. What's going on? What are we going to do? Might be. I don't know. We'll see. If I get an answer, or if I do some more research, I might do another episode on this. We'll see. Anyway, let's wrap this show up. This is gonna be long, and I've got work to do, as I mentioned earlier. Let's talk about the feedback. First of all, we have producer Mike Small, who commented on the previous episode about YouTube censorship, and he says, "Thank you for this episode. Somehow this happening to you helped me appreciate the seriousness of this kind of censorship in a way that the Trump Twitter ban did not. I also feel insulted as a listener, reader, and citizen. Not that I would ever use YouTube when an alternative is available. It's not the same level of insult to me as to you. My work is not being impugned. But implicit in the idea that our news must be sanitized is the premise that we as listeners are like zombies or wind-up dolls. Like, I can't decide for myself whether or when you're full of shit, or I need some more facts and evidence than you've presented. Anyway, keep up the good work. I like the way you're handling this." Thank you, Mike, and I appreciate that email, and I appreciate that you. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast, right? Some of this is opinion. The other part is research. I give everybody in the show notes access to everything I have. And I want you to call me out on things when you think they're wrong. That is the very idea of this show. This very idea of the show is the assumption that you're just not going to take my word as law, but like think about it and have your own opinion about it. And also, like the whole point about this show is that I unlike a lot of other publications, I think, or podcasts or whatever, I'm here taking you seriously as an adult, and I think you can consume this content, and then if you want, you can form your own opinion. You can agree, you can disagree. You are your own person who knows what they're doing, and you're not dumb. I don't want to treat you. I feel like a lot of my colleagues, when they write things or produce content, they put themselves in the position where they're very patronizing and they're like, I know what's going on. Kind of like, connected to a lot of these people are those same people on the other side of the fence I talked about earlier in the show, where they're like, we know best and we're going to tell you now, right? What I'm doing here is like, I find this topic interesting. I've done some research. I've come to an opinion. I'm going to present you the research and my opinion, and then do with that what you want, right? Agree, don't agree, ignore me, or write in. And I think that is the attitude journalists should have, or generally like content producers should have, right? You should try to treat your audience as grown-ups and, as equals. I think that is how new media should work. New media, new rules. So thanks for the email, Mike. I appreciate it very much. Fadi Mansour, another producer, writes in a lot, also wrote in. And he says, I've read your blog. So this was before I recorded the actual episode. I had some updates on the blog before, I got around to doing the podcast. That's what he's talking about. But he's basically talking about the previous episode. It's just like he wrote in before he had a chance to listen, or before it was probably out, I think. I've read your blog post about YouTube removing the episode and your decision to fight it. It seems the issue has been resolved, but I wanted to say that I really appreciate your stance to fight this. Of course, links to this is also in the show notes. Unfortunately, and I think this is the thing I was mentioning in the beginning. I now remember that it was Fadi. Of course, it was Fadi. Smart man. I think he puts nail on the head here. Unfortunately, we are living in interesting times. It is clear that freedoms that people enjoyed are being taken away now. I believe that getting these freedoms was not easy, and it's important to try and defend them. Hopefully, there's still a chance, but this requires that people recognize these dangerous trends. I hope there's a chance. Otherwise, I guess I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I think we are in the vast minority here. I think most people don't want to. I think the problem is most people don't want to spend the effort to think things through and to think critically. They just want to go on with their lives, and they have trust. They have trust in certain sources, and when these sources say, these people are all like conspiracy theorists and Nazis and anti-vaxxers, and they're all crazy, don't listen to them, listen to us, they just swallow that. And I think our best defense is trying to just, I don't even think these days, back in the day when I was younger, when I was doing Linux Outlaws, I always tried to evangelize people, I think, at least in the beginning. I was like, this operating system's better, you should use that. And the older I get, maybe I've gotten wiser. I've certainly got the gray hairs. If you're watching the video version of this, you can tell. Maybe I've gotten a little bit wiser, and I've understood that often doesn't work. You can tell people, but they're just not going to listen. What I try to do these days is not convince people on the topic. No matter what we're talking about, operating systems, vaccinations, how bad the virus is, what's happening to our democracy, privacy, doesn't matter. I'm not going to try to convince them on the subject. What I'm trying to is give them another perspective, but in a meta sense. I'm trying to get them to understand how media works, right? That not everything you hear on TV is, or on the radio, or you read on Spiegel Online or on the BBC or on the Washington Post is true. That these are people, that there's no true and false, that there's degrees, right, of everything. Everything is gray. That, I'm a journalist, these people are journalists. They're not inherently better or at their job or more careful just because I'm a freelancer and they work at the New York Times, right? There are probably people at the New York Times who I would consider are worse journalists than I am. It's not that a lot of people are going to agree, but I think, and at any publication, it's not this thinking of this political party and that, right or left, conservative, progressive, red and blue, mainstream media, YouTube, or whatever you want to do, that never even approaches the truth. The truth is always gray. There's a lot of misinformation on YouTube, and there's a lot of good journalism on YouTube. Right? There's a lot of good journalism in the New York Times, and there's a lot of misinformation in the New York Times. Right? There's propaganda that comes out of Russia. There's propaganda that comes out of the US government. There's propaganda that comes out of the German government. This is all like, I'm just trying to instill in people this idea that I also have with this podcast, where it's about like, think for yourself. Don't go like, I've like learned in my upbringing or whatever in my sociology that like the public broadcaster can be trusted. There are people on there that don't know what the fuck they're doing. There are people on there that can't be trusted. And there are people on websites that can't be trusted. And there are people on like blogs that you've never heard of that are very good critical thinkers and that you should trust inherently over like the anchor on your mainstream news. Right? And I'm just trying to, these days, I think the only way we're going to win this war, for lack of a better term, is if we instill this approach in people. And I realize it's probably futile, and it's, I'm in a bubble. All my friends are like, at least like me. I mean, I don't have a university degree, but I at least went to university, right? Most of my friends are very intelligent people. A lot of them are more intelligent than me. They are certainly not the brunt of the people that live in Germany, that live in the UK. So I don't know how realistic that is, but I'm just trying to do what I can, right, in my small way with the people that listen to me, and I just think that approach is better. I don't know if it's the winning approach, but it's better than the approach of saying, I think this virus is overblown and here's why. Right? What I'm trying to do is like, okay, so right now you're listening to like these statistics and you think anything else somebody says is like completely wrong. And I'm just trying to tell you, right, like statistics are always statistics, and there's problems with all kinds of statistics. Right? You just need to, like, you can't just say, okay, this is source for this is the government, so it's trustworthy. The government also puts out misinformation. Anyway, I think that's probably enough about that. One more thing I want to mention that makes me very happy. So I had Cam, who's also a producer on the show, supporter of the show, write me a message on Patreon and saying that so I was mentioned No Agenda because basically this is where I got the value for value model from, and I'm a long time listener of that show. And I like the guys, John and Adam, very much. And I got some listeners from them, obviously being played on the stream, and I really like that. It's pretty cool. But so Cam sent me this. He's up to date on No Agenda. I'm not. As I said, I've been really busy. I'm way behind. But apparently in No Agenda 1357, so 1357, there was a donation. And somebody mentioned me, if not by name, mentioned this podcast. I'm going to play that. This is the button I pressed earlier by mistake. I'm going to play this now because it makes me very happy. So this is from No Agenda 1357.
All right. Sir Colin, the friendly fat man. I haven't heard from Sir Colin in a while. In the morning, John and Adam, I've been hit in the mouth by the host of the Private Citizen podcast, thankfully already before the pandemic started to threaten the sanity of us all. So 1 year ago, I subscribed by a small monthly donation amount, and since then I've never missed a show, which helped keep my amygdala so small. To celebrate my first year of supporting the show and also my 53rd birthday today, which being a father myself, I am pleased to learn also happens to be Father's Day in your country. Please accept this special donation for episode 1357. Thank you for your courage, no jingles, no karma, and thank you, Sir Colin, the friendly fat man. You are on the list. Appreciate it.
That's pretty cool. So that's somebody who heard about No Agenda from me and then started donating to them. Being hit in the mouth, by the way, in case that's weird. I didn't punch somebody. That's like No Agenda slang. They have their own vocabulary on that show. I mean, it's been going on for 1,357 episodes, obviously. it's like vocabulary for being told about the show. Being hit in the mouth. Anyway, I thought I'd explain that. So that's cool. I mentioned feedback before. If you have any on the show, which might be likely, if you want to convince me that porn's evil, please do. Don't assume I'm not going to listen just because you have a different opinion. Please go to privatecitizen.press and let me know. And with that, let's wrap up this show now. Right, so I mentioned the value for value model before. From No Agenda, you can basically support the show, but you don't have to. That's what it comes down to. If you want to, and it would very much be appreciated because, the year is not being very kind to me in general, you can become a Patreon supporter. There's a link also in the show notes. You can send one-off monetary support via PayPal through the email address producers@fab.industries. It's also in the show notes. And if you have another way, please, I think we can work something out. You can also support me via Twitch. You can subscribe to the Twitch channel. That'll help. And of course, if you have Amazon Prime, you can do that for free. It expires after a month, but then you can do it again. And so you don't have to pay any money extra, and I get some money, and it'll help me out. So let's mention the people who did that. So the people who've supported this show via PayPal and Patreon this very episode are Georges, Steve Hose, Butterbeans, Jonathan M. Heathy, Michael Mullen Jensen, Dave, 1i11g, Vlad, Jackie Plage, Philip Klostermann, Jaroslav Lichtblau, Michael Small, IKN, Kai Sears, Fadi Mansour, Bennett Piata, Joe Poser, Jig Didi, Larry Glock, Tobias, David Potter, Matt Jellyman, Mika, Martin, Mode 7, Sandman 616, Dave Umrish, Mr. Ramish, Avis, Drive Zero, Ricky M, Barry Williams, Jonathan Edwards, Rizal, Rodane the Insane, Captain Egghead, Cam, D, RJ Tracy, No Reply, Rick Bragg, Ezekiel 017, Robert Forster, and Superuser. And then the people who subscribe to Twitch, who also help me out, and I thank them a lot as well, are Mike the Dane, Flash Gordo, Acherontas7, Bacon the Pork, Brigadier Sir Nils Olaf, Indie Gamiacs, Nomt771, Mode 7 is unavailable, Sandman 616, Redeemer RF, Ezekiel 017, Centurio Purchase, Galtaran, and Butterbeans. So thanks to all of those. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate it very much. You help. Yeah, you do help. Every euro counts from you right now. So you are helping, and that's very much appreciated. Let's get out of here. I have to thank bytemark.co.uk, because they are providing me for free with the servers. They're a British cloud hosting company, stellar guys, and without those servers I couldn't run the show. So that's pretty cool. Thanks to Bytemark. And let's get out of here. The theme tune I mention this every show, but it's a great song, and I want to give credit. It's by Raoul Kabazali. It's called Acoustic Roots. And I'm going to play you out with some jazz, because the last time I did this, people were really happy, at least the people that were listening live. So I got some, that's why live feedback's helpful. So we have some jazz. It's a song called Not That Serious by Nocturnal Spirits. And with that, I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to see you soon. As I said before the planned hiatus, I'm going to try to give you 2 more episodes. At the latest, I'm going to see you. You're going to hear from me next Wednesday. Until then, hang in there and think for yourself, and aim to misbehave once in a while. Righty-ho. Oh, I'm talking into the... Luckily, it's on a different sound. Luckily, I have a track for that, so I didn't just ruin my fucking recording. That's the show. I hope you got something from that. I'll be running away now. Got to finish this show, and then got some important stuff to take care of today. So I'm gonna leave you with my friend Deadly Slop. So apparently, the Tarkov wipe hasn't finished. Apparently the servers aren't up, so Deadly's just, I don't know what the hell he's doing, but he's a fun guy. I'm gonna watch him throughout the day as the wipe happens, but right now I need to finish this podcast. But let's raid him now, and I'll see you soon. I hope I can. Why can't I can't type. That's one thing. I hope I can stream these other 2 episodes over the coming few days. I will try to do that. Definitely. I will. Yeah, I want to even stream some games, but I don't think I can. Like we'll see. It'll be all until I'm back from holiday. It'll be all just like on a very day-to-day basis, and after that, I'm gonna really try to get a schedule going again. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it a lot. Have some fun with Deadly Slop. See you soon. Where's the button? Where's the button?